Hi everyone, Claudia Glassman here with Mighty Oak Parenting. So my daughter came home from school the other day and she said to me, Mom, a little girl at school told me that her mom told her that when you say no, you're saying no to God. So the therapist kind of cringed because the first thing that came to my mind is, are we, should we be teaching our kids that they can't ever say no? And now, as a therapist, I've worked with children that couldn't say no or that didn't say no. And on a spectrum of issues, right, that found themselves in various situations. Some of them were hurt, some of them were not, but in not such healthy situations for themselves, right? I've worked with adults that struggled with no and that felt stress and anxiety and overextended, overwhelmed, and also at times found themselves in situations that were not in their best interest and sometimes harmful to them or potentially harmful to them, right? So that's kind of what popped into my mind. But I took a deep breath and I asked her, tell me a little bit more about that. What do you mean? What happened? So she starts explaining that I guess this little girl wanted her to do something. And my daughter said no. And this little girl's response was, well, my mom says that if you say no, you're saying no to God. And so we had a conversation and we talked about all the times that we need to say no. If someone's hurting us, say no, right? If someone's asking us to do something that we know isn't right, we say no. I asked my daughter to come up with some examples and she did. Some of them were humorous, like if someone tells you to pull your pants down in the middle of the classroom, you shouldn't do it. I said, right, we don't do that, right? And so we talked a lot about that. And we talked a lot about no. And then she seemed very impacted by what this little girl said. And so I shared with her my perspective on this. And I said, I think, or I believe that God gave us the ability to say no for a reason. And he gave us free will and we can use it. And that it's absolutely okay to say no if we need to protect ourselves. And that sometimes we have to say no, and saying yes could be more problematic, right? And so we really explored that in depth. And I plan to kind of just revisit that frequently with my daughter in general. But I get from a parent's perspective, and I don't know, you have to remember this is all coming through the filter of several children and then being reported back to me. So I don't know what this mother actually said to her daughter. I don't know, I know how my child interpreted it. And I'm gathering how this child interpreted it. So this has kind of gone through a couple of filters. My suspicion is, that we as parents in general, we don't want to hear no. It's like you can say no to your friends' bad ideas in the world, but please don't be, disrespectful or uncompliant in my home. So when we tell you to do something, I want you to do something, but only me. That only applies to mom. And I've written about this before about how that doesn't work, right? It doesn't work that we say you need to do everything I say and you need to be 100% compliant here, but don't be compliant out in the world or have more discretion out in the world. The challenge is children practice saying no and they practice the skills that they need out in the world at home. And so when we knock them down at home or we don't allow it at home, they're not going to feel comfortable using it in the world. So that child that's really, really compliant with their parents and never questions anything is probably also very compliant with every other adult in the world, which may or may not have a child's best interest at heart, and their friends when they're 13, 14, 15. Again, these are seeds that are planted at home and skills that are practiced at home. So, I'm not saying that our child or children should be able to say no and just do whatever they want, right? So if we say, go clean your room and they say no, that we just let it go. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is we try to avoid punishing the no. So if a child says, I don't want to clean my room, no, I'm not going to do it. You can say, I understand you don't want to clean your room, but we need to clean our room now. And if they still resist, it's okay to give natural consequences for not cleaning the room, but not for saying no, if this makes sense to you. So, if you don't clean your room, we can't go to the park today because this needs to get done before we leave the house, or whatever the natural consequences that make sense in that scenario for you would be. But we're not saying, how dare you say no to me, right? Because that's very different. And there are times at home when we absolutely can respect the no. If a child doesn't want to talk and they want quiet time and they want to go in their room and be alone, that is a no we can respect. If, we want to give our child a hug and they say, no, I don't want to be touched right now, that is a no we can respect. So there are a lot of no's that come up that are okay to respect. But the key again is that these are skills that they practice at home in order to use in the real world. So we can't say you need to be 100% compliant at home and never question anything and go out in the world and question what people are doing, right? It's kind of the same thing. Again, home is the learning place and the practice space for the things that we're going to need in the world. And so, I encourage everyone to talk to their children about saying no when we need to, especially if you hear things like I heard the other day. Because I do think, we need that no. My child needs to be able to say no to someone that has a bad idea, that puts her in a dangerous situation, that does something inappropriate, that, potentially could hurt her. All of these things need to say no. This is just one aspect of having healthy boundaries. So that she can grow into an adult that can say no, that she can say no when something isn't in her best interest and say no to something that, isn't a good idea for her, or to say no to something that's just immoral and wrong, right? And to not, as she goes to adolescence, not kind of follow the entire crowd, but have the ability to be like, that's not a good idea. But all of this starts really young, and all of this starts early on. And so we're planting those seeds. So something else to think about for today, kind of ponder, what are the ways in which you can encourage your child to have those boundaries and implement boundaries and an opinion and her thoughts or his thoughts in everyday interactions, and how can you respect those and still find the balance of not giving into your child, right? Because that's the other part is it doesn't mean because they can say no that they have free reign to do whatever they want or to not do things that we're asking them to do. So finding that balance, like in the example I gave. So just a little bit of food for thought for today, something that came up for me this week that I was like, I have to share this with people. This is a great learning experience for my daughter, for myself, and opened a fantastic conversation with my child about all of the times we need to say no and how it is absolutely an appropriate thing to say if you need to. So chew on that for a little bit. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll be back soon. Bye.